And so for this tutorial, I'm going to show you not only a quick solution, which I'll do here in the first part of this video, but then more of a advanced solution. So right now I'm in Ableton 10 standard, and I've recorded all this. I'm going to make another save, and I'm going to set everything back. I don't think there's any automation, but I'll double check. I'll set all the levels back to where they are just 0, which is default when you create a MIDI or an audio file. Or in this case, I'm referring to the different channels in Ableton. So one thing I'm going to do for right now is put a limiter on it for this tutorial specifically. That way when I'm showing everyone on this tutorial, your ears will not be devastated. I hate saying that. So everything's at -6. So what the limiter does is it's going to keep all the levels at one flat range, meaning it can't go above 6 decibels. If you were to leave this off, personally I put it on the master. You could put it on a group. You can group different tracks right here, Control G. But I'm just putting it on everything just for this tutorial. Let me delete any effects if there are any. It's kind of running slow because I've got some plugins. I believe this needs to be gone. Okay. Audio channel not being used. Okay, here's another one. So we can get a decent picture here. So now I'm going to begin. I'll play the song for now. So it may get loud. We'll find out. That part's a little annoying. Get rid of that. Anyway, that being said, so that's what the MIDI files are playing. So we have different instruments. We got the 303. We've got a 909, which is part of Ableton. A 606. Tons of different plugins. So this one, let's see how this one sounds. So you can always mute all the tracks, or you could do a solo. So let's hear how this sounds solo. Okay. So there's a delay effect. I'll turn that up. Okay, there are probably some pretty high range. Excuse me. Probably some pretty high range things there. So what I'll do, there's 2 303s. I generally do this if there's like duplicates, basically. However, they're slightly different. One is more of a bass line, and the other's more of just a accent kind of line. Okay, so let's do -6 decibels on each of these. Okay. This is just going off, just kind of like a common practice that I do. There's also this one, which actually needs to come up. So I've already maxed out the volume of this plugin. We'll come back to that at the end. The strings, I think they should go down probably, because they were pretty high in the mix. And there's definitely some high-pitched notes. So I'm going to put this maybe at -4. Okay. This is just to bring down the levels, because if I was to take off that limiter, it would probably be clipping. The 606, probably bring that down maybe 2 decibels. Actually, usually I like to work in if it's divisible by 3, basically. Okay, so we might just leave that as is because this one's quiet. I'll go ahead and solo that. See, it's quite quiet, and there might be another reason for this. Maybe the accents are real low. They don't look too low, but I'll just boost them up. So that helped in itself. That's more of an advanced kind of thing. So, okay, we got these done. I'm going to go ahead and group these just for organizational reasons. You can label it. That's never a bad idea. I also like to keep the drums pretty close to one another, so this I would say is a drum. Okay, these I've pretty much dealt with, so I'll group those. I'll just call this drums. Okay, and I'll change the color of it. Let's say, I don't know, this kind of color. Oh. Sorry, I'm a bit colorblind. No, that's not it either. There we go. Okay. And this one, this is a psychedelic kind of trance song, psytrance, or whatever you want to call it. I'll put that down -3 as well. So we got the 303s, the drums, and then these two I'll just group together, and I'll call those just like synths or something like that. Okay, change the color. Let's make it easy on myself. Okay, so that's it all together. I think it was that one. Okay. So let's hear it now. It's probably going to be quite quiet because I've got the limiter still enabled. Okay, let's go ahead and turn off the limiter. And what we're going to pay attention to is if this goes above 0 decibels. What we're going to pay attention to is if this goes over 0 decibels, that will show, it'll turn red, it'll switch back and forth depending on the volume. And if that's the case, we'll have to continue to change the volume or level of each track if we're going to do this properly. But what I'm going to avoid is getting too much into like the different effects, compressors. I may use a compressor, but this I'll do 2 different versions, like I mentioned. So there'll be the version where I use more effects, and then there'll be a preset, which it's an audio effects rack, which means it's got multiple effects already pre-programmed, or not pre-programmed, but put together in a way that the people at Ableton Live thought it should sound. Okay, so okay, we saw there it did peak above 0 decibels, which isn't too big of a deal. For this part, we're gonna just kind of see how it goes. If it goes really above, then we're gonna have clipping. Okay, so the main issue now, I could turn the drums down just a little bit, so I'll go to my group that thankfully I labeled. I'll just do -1 decibels. Okay, and then I saw when the synths were going, the one that I thought was going to cause problems. Well, actually both were kind of loud, but what I'll do there, I'll go a little bit more aggressive, and I'll do maybe -2. Okay. Now let's see how the levels go. I might turn down the higher pitch 303. I'll turn it down. Probably, I think it's this one. Let's find out. Yeah, I'll turn this down to -7. So the levels weren't too bad, so I think I'll leave it. We'll see what happens more in the advanced part of this video, but for now it's still going to be just a real simple couple of effects. So delete the limiter off the master. Okay, so the only, and this is exclusive to Ableton 10. I'm sure all the other DAWs and all that have presets for mastering. So what you want to do is go up to Audio Effects Rack. Okay, there's a bunch of different types of mastering, or just like weird effects. Pretty much anything that's like pretty dramatic is going to be in here, because it's combinations of effects. So I'll go to Mixing and Mastering. And this is really where you want to find out what kind of setting this game is going to be in. Or not game, excuse me. What setting this track is going to be in. This, when it's complete, what song, you know. Is it going to be something that's very bassy, but if you do that, then you're going to have some trade-offs. Generally, for this program, this full chain master has been pretty decent. There are some settings in there that will make your track distort if you don't get everything down. We'll go ahead and try it and see how that sounds. And it is going to have a limiter built into it, so things won't clip, but they will probably distort. Okay. And so usually when it says bass gain, since I'm using like drum tracks that are MIDI from, you know, like a plugin that's already pretty bassy, I'll just turn this to 0. Okay. Overdrive, I usually put at 0. Stereo enhance is pretty decent, but it can also cause clipping. So, yeah, let's see how this sounds. So that enhanced it quite a bit, I want to say. The compressor was pretty clear on there. So yeah, I would say the only thing I would recommend is if you're using already pretty bassy plugins or instruments, I would just set the bass gain to 0. That'd be my only recommendation as far as what to mess with there. Everything else is pretty much fine. I'll show you though one last thing before, as far as maybe it distorts a little bit using this stereo enhance. So let's click and we'll see where it's saying. Okay, so this is probably where it is. Yeah, I'm not too sure on all of the spectrum kind of stuff. I'm still working with that. Let's see. Yeah, so anyway, that's it broken down basically. Okay. Yeah, it does open up a little bit, but personally I like it off. Okay, so that's it for the beginner kind of thing. I mean, there's also plenty of other mastering audio effects. Another one I like to use is probably the car listening environment one. And that in combination with the small speaker. I can't remember which order it goes, but it might, like I said before, usually put the bass at 0. And there are 2 compressors going on, so this might be best if we turned one of these off. And then the ambience kind of adds like a little enhancement and distortion. I'll turn that off. Transients, all that stuff, I leave the same. Okay, so yeah, basically that's basically it. I would stay away from certain of these, just for Ableton users. This aggressive Dance Master, I'm sure you can get it under control, but I've listened to quite a few tracks using this, and unfortunately I don't think it's a very good mix. The compressor is way too aggressive and just way too much bass. So you get these weird little like compression moments that like are very obvious, and I don't know. I'll let you decide. But personally, I don't like this one. Out of all of them, I dislike this one the most. It's almost like the audio like pulls forward and then comes back. So I just don't like that effect. So basically the full chain master is good for a lot of things. Okay, so as far as like more of an advanced kind of thing, you could do your own effects, and you can put them on different groups or individual instruments. So I would say first thing on this that's the most noticeable is how ear splitting the high end is. So what I believe it needs first would be an EQ. Okay, an EQ is going to be good for cutting out a lot of the high-end sounds and low-end that you wouldn't hear. Like basically a dog would hear it, you know, with supersonic kind of pitches, but human ears can't really hear it unless it's, put like emphasized or something like that. So generally I just do a low pass filter, so I just turn that to not the aggressive low pass, but the softer one. Okay, and then I'll just do the same thing, but it will be a high pass filter on this side. So that will cut out pretty much all of the frequencies that you would be unable to hear. So that'd be from like zero hertz to maybe about 30 in my experience, but again, it could depend on what frequency range your headphones or speakers are at. So it has cut out quite a bit from that synthesizer, so I'm going to pull back a little bit, so I'll move the frequency over to, let's say, 9,000, or let's say 10,000. Oh, not 10 hertz. Nope. 10. There. Okay. So now the synths do provide a decent high end to the mix, aren't going to be cut so dramatically and then lose a lot of the gain, and so. Okay, so I'm listening in right now to the drum synth here, that's providing like the cymbal hits and things like that. Another quick solution for the high pass and that is just throw an EQ3 on there, and it's already going to set the high and lows. I'll change this to maybe 4,000. Okay, so let's hear now, listening specifically to the cymbal being hit in this drum kit. So I think that helped, just like very subtly. It'd be hard to tell in most situations. The synths, I do feel like lowering them down even further. I believe this one is providing more of, well, I'll just do both. So -3. Okay. So I think the 303 is okay. I might add a little bass enhancement through an EQ. So I'll turn this. I also want to cut it at the same time. So I'll turn it to that, and then I'll increase that region of bass a little bit. And this is for the 303 that's providing more of the bass sound. And then I'll go ahead and do a high pass. And we'll see how that sounds. So I want to say just doing that basically made the mix sound a lot more whole. And at this point, you could do, let's see, what other effects would I usually put on? Personally, I've heard using a little bit of overdrive is okay. Usually I'll just put enhance, the enhance preset. So it will kind of make it a little more exciting, but it does run the risk of making distorted sounds even worse. Anything else? I could use a preset for a compressor, but personally I like to use a plugin for that. But if you are just using Ableton without any plugins, or any other DAW that has compressor presets and things like that. Personally, I just do gentle kneeless. That's one of my favorite ones I use. And then at the end here, this is on the master track. So everything's going to go through this series of EQing and compression. I will change that to a low pass filter. Since my 303 is close to it's being boosted on the low end, I'll turn it maybe down to, let's say, 25. Okay. And then high end, the high end didn't sound too bad. So I'll put another high pass on. However, I'm going to move it to somewhere around 10,000. Okay, so let's hear. This is kind of just what the same thing with the audio effects rack would be doing with its presets, but it's your own custom preset, you know, based on the specific track you're working on. I'm gonna say, okay, possibly what's affecting this so much is this compressor. So, and I'll put the enhance at the end. Let's hear that. So I've done a little bit too much at this point because our levels again are high. And that's due to the fact that I was changing the ratio of the compressor as the song was playing. I also did take off the high pass filter, so I'll put that somewhere closer. Let's say 15. Actually, let's do 14,000. And I'll go ahead and turn off the enhance. So let's see how this sounds. And one other thing, you can also change how little or how much you want the effect to be kicking in. So I'll put the compressor somewhere at like 50. So for me, I would say that's pretty good. I'll change one last thing, and that will be the frequency of the high pass. I'll do 15,000. Okay. So pretty gentle, it's not taking off a whole lot. I did turn the enhancement back on. And so, yeah, at this point, what's usually a good idea if you're going to make similar sounding music, or you're going to use these effects again on some other tracks to try out, you can create your own audio effect rack, and it'll be accessible through different presets like I have here. So just draw or drag over a blank audio effects rack, put these in there, and one thing I did forget is a limiter, and that goes on at the very end just to make sure you don't get clipping. You might get distortion, like I said, but you won't get clipping as much. It'll sound, it won't like have the same pop as like it would if it was 6 decibels above 0. So yeah, nothing's getting above negative 30 decibels. I mean, technically it's all kind of getting squished at the end, so it distorts, but if it's a light distortion, you can get away with it, and there's different trains of thought with that. Some people would prefer to have no distortion whatsoever, so that's perfectly fine. And one last thing, two more things. So yeah, you could go ahead and save your audio effects rack. So there's a save icon down here. It's very small. Go ahead and save it, and then you could put house music mastering, something like that. And I put rack. Okay, so you can, in another project, you just access your user presets, and it will be in there. So now the last thing you can do, if you are compelled, is go ahead and change panning for certain things. I don't do this enough, but for this tutorial I'll do it. Let's say here for the panning of this group, the synths, let's do say 15. Okay. The drums I'll leave in the middle, and then the 303s I'll put on the left ear. I believe it's negative 15. Okay, so this can mess with the levels if it's not done very meticulously. This is just kind of like an optional thing. I don't personally think it's too good in like a video game soundtrack, kind of setting, but to each their own. I think it might be a little too pronounced, so I'm just going to leave it on 0. So yeah, and then after you've drug in your MIDI notes in there, or audio files in the this viewport, you go ahead and save your projects. You know, it's important. That's just going to save the Ableton project file. It's not going to do anything as far as like outputting it as something you can use in a video game or whatever music project you're working on. So you need to convert it either to a WAV, a FLAC file, or MP3. I prefer using FLAC. Make sure that it's the correct amount of bars, and then you can do other things such as render it as a loop, which is very useful in a video game setting. Normalize, it does quiet things down in my opinion, and if you've gone through this much work trying to get it sounding good, I just leave it off. So I'll turn on that, and then I'll go ahead and export. So that'd be it overall for mastering a track. There's the beginner way, where of course you can use one of the presets after getting the levels pretty much even, you know, making sure things aren't too high and low, and then just on your mixing and mastering, just drop one of the presets in. Like I said, I prefer this full chain master, and yeah, if it's too bassy, turn down the bass. If it's ear piercing, turn down the high, whichever, but it's good to start somewhere. Okay, so that's it, and I hope this helps anybody out there who's trying to get into using a I just hope it helps somebody out there that is unsure of what to do when it comes to if your levels are too loud, why is everything, you know, overpowering, and why is my mix not like very good. It's there's quite a few factors. So anyway, thanks for watching, and have a good day.